So I finally got around to watching Beverly Hills Cop 4, Axel Foley, and you know what? I wasn't really sure what to expect when it came to this film, other than, you know, the comedic, fun, buddy cop type of vibe that's been in all of the other films. And after watching this movie, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So getting into the film, we are following Eddie Murphy's character, Axel Foley, some 30 years after the events of the third film. And I gotta be honest, I haven't seen the third film. I actually forgot that there was a third film, but I think that for this fourth movie, that's okay because it follows well in line with the first two films. And really that is because we are following a lot of the same cast that was in those first two installments, and the chemistry that is between these characters feels just like it did in 1984 and 1987. Beverly Hills Cop 4 managed to be a fun time with hard-hitting comedy, satisfying but not overly done action, and also following a trope that has become the thing for these returning franchises from the 80s and 90s, which is bringing in a younger cast of heroes into these franchises and the realization that these OGs are getting up there a bit. I gotta say, we all know Eddie Murphy is funny, but man, is he a fool in this movie. Axel Foley doing his different personas and trying to impersonate people in order to get the evidence that he needs for whatever case he's working on. It's so hilarious when he commits to these different personas and into this role in general, because it's just funny to watch Eddie Murphy do his thing, and it is very Axel Foley. You can tell that this role was easy, maybe natural for him to get back into, and it's just Eddie Murphy having a good time. Him being this old-time cop from Detroit and making fun of the Beverly Hills cops. Like, there's a scene where these two cops pull him in a Prius and he's making fun of them because they're in a Prius.
Seriously, this is your squad car? You know, part of me rather get locked up for resisting arrest than get put in this little Fisher-Price looking motherfucker y'all rolling around in.
It was just hilarious. I love when movies show these old guys that are dealing with the changes and seeing that the world is changing and it's different than the way that they knew it in their time. It's a funny trope that Eddie Murphy just adds to in a very enjoyable way. A lot of the returning cast was fun to see. Judge Reinhold and John Astin as Rosewood and Officer Taggart played their part very well. They still feel very much so in line with the spirit of their characters in the original two films, and just like then, their on-screen time was funny and a lot of fun, and I could imagine pretty nostalgic maybe for those who grew up in this era watching those movies. The new faces to the franchise that we got, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Taylor Page as Detective Bobby Abbott and Jane Saunders, the daughter of Axel Foley, was an acceptable and nice addition to this lineup. They were utilized as the young, fresh faces, able to help Axel navigate through this modern day Beverly Hills setting, and also gave Axel Foley a little bit of an internal conflict to deal with in this film between him and his daughter, which is something new for the Axel character. Bobby Abbott was also a natural addition in this setting as this young and eager detective wanting to do what's right, calling out Axel Foley, challenging him and his unorthodox way of dealing with things. And even though these new characters are an important part of the story, it didn't feel overwhelming. They didn't take over Eddie Murphy. It didn't become the Bobby and Jane movie. It was really good and done well. Some of the things that maybe I kind of had a little bit of gripes with in this film, I mentioned that the action wasn't overly done. It wasn't crazy. And I think that that's good for this franchise. However, it didn't feel magnificent either. It was kind of corny, a little bit slow paced, very 80s vibe, which may have been the goal. So in that sense, it's probably a good thing. It just felt a little outdated, I guess. Another thing that is kind of a nitpick, maybe it was by design, but I didn't really like it too much, is the mystery that's behind the villain or the main villain of this film. There really isn't any. The mystery is pretty non-existent. You know exactly who the villain is early on into the film just by seeing his face. They don't try to hide it, and it's very predictable what he's up to. And I think lastly about the film is the film didn't really feel like it took itself serious. And I know that it's an Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy movie, but as I mentioned, that internal conflict that Axel has with his daughter and their kind of dynamic that they have throughout the film, the emotion just didn't really hit as hard as maybe it should have, because this is a relationship between a father and daughter, and it felt like after every moment that was supposed to be serious, we just went right back into the jokes, Axel making a fool of himself. The conflict that was being set up and dealt with just didn't feel as important to the overall story, and it didn't really hit, I think, the way that it was either meant to or even the way that it should have, which is kind of a bummer because I feel like Axel Foley does have some serious moments. In the first film, it was the whole motive that his best friend got killed in front of him, and there was this little clip at the end where he tells the guy who confess to that crime, that he was going to kill him. That was a very serious moment. Like, the entire facial expression, you saw the seriousness in Axel Foley. So I feel like the capability was there. The movie itself just maybe didn't take itself all that serious. Overall though, I do gotta say that this film was enjoyable. I had a good time watching it. I think in a way this kind of lines up well with like Bad Boys 4 that just released recently, as far as the feel-good OG buddy cop type of film. But I do think that Bad Boys 4 tackled the emotional beats a lot better than Axel Foley did. But since it is on Netflix, I would absolutely recommend to go watch this movie. If you're in the mood for, you know, a good laugh and you're just hanging back and maybe nothing else to watch, it's definitely a fun time. I think that you won't feel like you wasted an hour and a half, 2 hours watching this film. It's an enjoyable time. And if you love the original films, you're gonna like this one at the very least. So not too much going on really with my thoughts about this movie. I think it's very straightforward. You get what you get, and it's an enjoyable time at the end of the day. If you've seen Beverly Hills Cop 4, Axel Foley, let me know what you thought about it. How'd you enjoy it? How you feel like it stacks up maybe to the previous 3 films? If you did enjoy this video and this review of this movie, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out the channel, pushes it out a little bit, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you don't miss any future videos that come out. We talk about a lot of movies, a lot of shows here, and it's a good time. But with that being said, I'm out. Y'all be smooth. And remember, stay geeked up.